a slave. And when he had been taught to read this word, he found out that being a slave was not his place. No wonder he loved this word so much. Says 7 months after he learned how to read, says he got converted. He got converted in his mind that this is not my place. I was not sent into the world to be a slave. I was sent into the world that I might help folks find their place. No wonder that even while he still had to change and shackle as a slave, he found out this is my place. The place where I can preach the word of liberation. A place where I can preach the word of hope. A place where I can help them go from time into eternity. This is my place. I know the slave master thinks I'm still a slave. But Jesus has told me that's not your place. I got another place for you. And furthermore, down in the old... Where's the lady that read that thing this morning that gave that dramatization? Where are you, sister? Oh, that was so wonderful. Do you understand? You say he was in the coal mines? And then he was working later on in the tobacco factory? And then did they have the iron works down there? He working at that, and every day he went to work. Jesus said, this is not your place. Oh, you're here now. You're here now. And thanks be to God, he heard Jesus tell him what his place was. So much so until he decided that after preaching, by the way, I did not know that it was against the law in those days for a black man to call himself a preacher. So I think they call it exhorting. That gave him freedom in the law. Or sometimes they say he gave a lecture. A lecture? There wasn't a lecture. The brother was preaching. And I'm glad I know something about this. I am proud. All of those of you who are Jasper descendants, I'm proud too. I am a descendant of a man who was a slave, whose name was C.C. Forbes. And he was a preacher before it was time for black folks to be preachers. And he got a little bush harbor in Stattenburg, North Carolina. And there he preached to the people until they found out about it. And the slave master came and told my great-great-great-great-grandfather that you can't be preaching here. Said if we find you preaching anymore, we're going to shoot you. You know what C.C. Forbes said? C.C. Forbes said, well, you might as well go ahead and shoot me now, because God has told me that I have a responsibility to preach to these people about who they are and what their place is. And so they heard it, and now there's a church. If you go down to Stattenburg, you'll find a church called Levelton Chapel. It started out in a bush harbor, but it's now a nice little church down in Stattenburg, North Carolina. And that's where my slave grandparent decided that's not my place. Oh, I can pick cotton. Oh, yeah, I can put in tobacco. Yeah, I can shuck corn, but that's not my place. My place is to declare deliverance to those who are captive. My place is to set the captive free. Well, that's what he did. And John, by the way, 6 Mount Zion, you all had to do the best you could under the circumstances. How in the world you gonna have a church in some kind of top? The church was first in a horse. Can't have no church in a horse stable. Well, sometimes you have to make a place, even if it's not your final place. Yes, sometimes you have to pray, even when it's not like the place you want to pray in. Sometimes you have to pray even if it's in jail. I know what I'm talking about. Paul and Silas, down in jail, having been whipped until their backs were bleeding. And yet, at midnight, they tell me, they sang and they prayed. You got to make your church where it is. But the Lord said to you all, to the founders, y'all founders, now y'all go ahead and pray now. I know you can smell the horse stuff. You cleaned it out the best you could. But one of these days, instead of being on a back alley, you're going to have a church on the main track. It's going to be called Route 95. There's going to be a church one of these days. Pray where you have to. Sometimes you won't have the place you want to pray. But if you really know your place spiritually, you can find it otherwise. Well, I think I've taken about enough time here to make this case, but I want to go just a little bit further, and then I'll let you go. But I don't think I want to let you go until you're ready to share with your neighbor what your place is. Have you been thinking about it? Have you been thinking that preacher might change and ask us if I did do that? Oh, if I did that, what would you say? You know who you are. You know what the Lord has told you in the midnight hour. And there's no need of you trying to tell him, because Burgess would tell you, you don't know what the Lord told me. Yeah, you don't know because you weren't there. You don't know when and you don't know where. You don't know what the Lord told me, but I don't know what did the Lord tell you to do with your life. To my honorees, each of you could stand and easily tell, this is a man that does what he does when they pay him and when they don't pay him. He has done it for all these years. He creates a space where all God's children can find a place. That's what it is. I never thought of Richmond Hill like that, but it's the place where people can discover who they are and what God wants them to do with their lives. Ronnie, my brother, says he used to come up there when he was struggling with his problems, and in that place, he found God speaking to him, saying, go ahead and keep on. Man, when you look at a museum, do you realize you don't have a museum for folks that ain't nothing? There is no such thing as a nothing folks museum. You got to begin to believe that you're somebody to even keep track of the artifacts of your life. You keep it down there so that folks will be somebody. And if you don't believe it, come to this place. We'll show you where we started from. And then we'll tell them, I don't believe he brought me this far to turn around. And did you know how much importance there was to your work? You working with the homeless and the hungry? Jesus said, honey, you right on the mark. Why? Because God wants all God's children to have a place. And from now on, I want to declare in the city of Richmond, there's such a thing as a capital offense. But then there's also such a thing as a divine offense. Since I don't have to pastor in this town, today, by the authority invested in me from high heaven, it is now an offense before God that there be anybody who doesn't have a place. Hey, bro, let me say something to you. The reason I came down here is to talk to you. I understand that you don't even mind your testimony being told by a preacher. I understand that there was a time when you were sleeping outside. They call you squirrel, wherever you're sleeping, up under the viaduct, under the bridge. But the Lord came down and told you, sister came and spoke to you and told you, hey man, down up under this bridge, this ain't your place. We have the same. You are a child of God. Down up under the bridge. That ain't your place. And now I understand that you're the head of the program over there, feeding folks. You are staff member. Why? I think you found your place. You think you found your place? I think